what is important to do if you have told your child is suicidal, you notice they're suicidal, or they tell you you're suicidal? What in your mind would be, and in your experience, would be the things to start thinking about and do immediately?
So let me say this first. For most of us, that's exactly how it's going to happen. Somebody's going to share with us that maybe our child has told them, or our child is going to share with us that they're having these thoughts, and we're going to need to react from that moment forward. And I'll come back to that because it's super important. But if you have listeners who have younger kids, how amazing to start that conversation early. Start that conversation in elementary school, because you're right. Our kids have heard the word suicide. We would very much like to believe that they haven't and that they don't know what it means, but they do. And their friends are talking about it.
Yep.
So they need to hear it from us. And so I really, really think parents should be having those conversations in 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade. Hey, you know what? I just want you to know that sometimes people get so sad or so depressed or so frustrated with life, they don't know how to handle it. And so sometimes they think that they need to kill themselves, that that's the only way to feel better.
Yeah.
And I just want you to know, if you feel that way, it's totally normal. It's not uncommon. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. You're not bad if you have those thoughts.
Hi, it's Tiffany Lorraine Galloway, certified high performance coach, with another episode of the Resilient Mother podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about mental health, that for our youth and what we're facing today in the world and how to maintain it. It's not an easy subject and it's intimidating for some, but I think it's important that we share these things and that we have these conversations so that parents don't feel alone, or that maybe you don't feel alone in your journey. I have Tara Rolstad with me, who's going to be giving us her insight, her experience, and her inspirational story on this subject. Tara, thanks for being here. Please tell us more about you.
Happy to. I am first a mom, and then a mental health speaker and author. I was a nonprofit executive. And then when my kids were little, 2, 5, and 7, my husband and I took in some nieces as foster kids, and they had come to us from a background of pretty awful trauma and abuse and came to us with serious mental illness. And that began our journey of learning about mental health, learning about mental illness, helping the girls get the help that they needed and put their own mental health back together and grow up and become the people they were supposed to be, the people that they were capable of being. And in the process, I learned a lot about how isolating that journey is, how hard it is for families to find help, and particularly how hard it is for moms and families to connect with each other on this topic, because we don't talk about it. We still don't talk enough about mental health, even though it's a super common experience for humans to struggle with mental health. So I'm a professional speaker on mental health now. I'm an author, and I do this work helping communities and organizations learn how to have this conversation.
I love these kind of stories. It takes so much love to take this on, especially for youth that come to you kind of broken, for lack of a sense of a word. And it's interesting how we treat like a broken bone. We'll put a cast on it. We'll recognize it. We'll sign the cast. We'll think it's kind of cool. But if someone's mentally broken or having a mental issue or something that's internal, maybe regulating emotions or different things, it somehow scares some people off. I think because it's intimidating, and I think it's because you don't know what to do with it. You know to put a cast on a broken bone. You know what to do there. But the mind is something that's very powerful, but it also is able to be repaired. And I wish more people understood that you can change the neural pathways of the brain with the right treatment, with the right practice, and with a whole lot of love. I think mental health always has to come from a place of love and patience and understanding, because it looks different for each individual. It looks different for each situation that someone is dealing with. And you didn't just take on one, you took on more than one child having this issue. So I'm interested to hear a little bit about how each of them were different, how some things worked the same, and what were the most important things that you could focus on when you initially take children in who have had this experience.
Well, the girls that came into our home, because there were 4 of them total, but one was with my folks and one was in a different situation. The 2 girls that came into my home were 14 and 5 when they came to us. And so those are very different developmental stages, right? And for the 5-year-old, she needed a lot of love, a lot of reassurance, a lot of connection. There was a lot of physical based symptoms for her. She had a lot of tummy aches. She had a lot of crying at night, crying herself to sleep at night, and a lot of difficulty kind of regulating her emotion and her relationships with others. The 14-year-old was a whole different story. 14-year-old was within the first few months of being in our home, she was intensely suicidal. And we found ourselves sitting in a psychiatric unit with her. She was having uncontrollable hallucinations of her abuser and really experiencing a life-threatening mental health event. And that continued for the next few years on and off as she cycled through learning how to treat her depression, her anxiety, and her post-traumatic stress disorder, her PTSD. And so her situation was particularly crisis-driven, chaos-driven, and very intense.
So the first thing that comes to mind when I hear that is, how do you keep siblings like that safe with each other? And also, how do you know when to get the professionals involved with that level of instability and safety for that child?
There was no question that we needed to have professionals involved from day one. Like, the girls came to us and we knew that needed to be immediately on the table. So we had them connected with therapy and psychiatric care immediately. And I don't think parents should wait, whether it's a child they've taken in or their own child. You mentioned a broken bone earlier, and we do know what to do when that happens. We immediately jump on it. We make the calls we need to make. We get the x-ray. We see the orthopedic surgeon. We do what we need to do. When it comes to our kids' mental health, too often we want to wait and see if it goes away. We hope that it's a phase. We think, well, they're probably going to grow out of it. They're probably just looking for attention. And so the first thing I would say is stop that. If you have a concern about your child's mental health, start with their pediatrician, but get on it quickly, because early intervention makes a tremendous difference when it comes to mental health issues. And so with my girls, we had them enrolled in help as soon as we possibly could. Unfortunately, because of the trauma that they experienced, the damage was very deep and it was very significant, and it was going to be a long, long, long time of years and years and years of work for them to begin to enter anything that looked like recovery. But as life would have it, one of our own kids also experiences severe depression and ADHD and autism. And same thing. We needed, as soon as we knew that something was wrong, and we didn't know right away, but as soon as we did, we knew we needed to get her help. And we needed to get services lined up to begin helping her figure out, how does her brain work? What are the places that she's lagging? What are the places she needs help? What are the places where she needs a biochemical kick in the butt, right? Like, where does she need medication? And medication was part of the solution for the girls as well. You asked me, I am remembering the actual question that you asked me, Tiffany, which was how to keep the girls safe. In their particular situation, and this is not uncommon with siblings who've been abused, there was a significant parentification situation in that the older girl really felt always very, very protective of her little sister.
Yeah.
The older girls had been very involved in raising themselves and raising each other and then raising this little one. And so we never, ever worried about, were they safe for each other? I know sometimes that can be a problem. In our case, it was not. What we worried about instead was the 14-year-old focusing on her little sister and not focusing on her own mental health and well-being.
Well,
because she was too busy trying to continue to parent.
Yeah, I think I find kids that are older, that have younger siblings, also, they just didn't get a chance to be a kid. So they're used to falling into some form of responsibility or thinking that they're helping by protecting or parenting their other sibling when they just need to be able to know that's not on them, and it should have never been on them. That should not have been on their shoulders. And so I've seen that as well.
And it's not an easy switch to make for a kid either, because we would have really frank conversations with her, like, hey, let us handle this. We're the grown-ups.
Yep.
This is our job now. You can relax and be in charge of you. But when you're raised in a situation where danger is pretty constant and where you have to be aware at all times of what could happen if anything goes sideways, that's not a switch that your body can make, let alone your mind, right? Like her body was programmed to do this, and working in concert with her mind to be constantly on alert and taking care of other people.
And in those very, very special developmental stages, it kind of interrupts some of the more natural patterns there and takes over and overhauls, because safety comes first. Our own minds will do that. If we experience any kind of trauma, safety's going to come first. So when we have a strong reaction to something or a trigger, it's really important to address that, not only in a child, but in an adult too. One of my other guests had pointed out that their kids were triggering them, and they realized it was from their own trauma from their childhood. And so when that would come up, they'd realize, I need to deal with this, so I'm not putting it on the next generation, and relinquish it. So I think it can go both ways, but a lot of it starts with awareness. And I think the key to you getting help as fast as you did and being willing to is you didn't see any shame or guilt about that. You didn't see any reason not to. And you recognize that there are tools and strategies out there that you didn't know, that you'd never implemented before. And that not only would you need help with that, but that it was going to be a process. You were willing to take it on. And I think for those that we love, we're willing to take that on. We're willing to take that on for our kids. And as a mother, when we come in, or instinctively with our own kids, I think we also have to trust our gut on what we feel if something is off or not, and not wait, like you said, until it's very obviously an issue. It shouldn't have to be self-harm or something that is that extreme that brings it to our attention. But sometimes kids hide it. That's something that's kind of a pandemic that's kind of happening within the teenage range. Some of these things I didn't even know about till I was like 16, but they're finding out at 8, 9, 10, 11, they're being exposed to self-harm, suicidal ideation. And it's not because you aren't trying to protect them, but it's out there with their other peers. It's out there on social media, which I'm glad we're making some changes that direction, but it's everywhere. Like there are things just they're going to get exposed to. And even as a child, there may be things they're exposed to that you don't know about, because the children, for example, who are molested, it's like 1 in 3 kids, and it's usually somebody they know. And they may tell you about it. They might not tell you about it till they're an adult, and it may affect them severely, and it might not affect them that much at all. It kind of varies, but it's important to have the awareness piece there, and don't bring any shame into, oh, I noticed this, or that was kind of an interesting conversation, or those kind of things. I know schools are doing better about, if they hear kids talking about suicide or anything that way, nipping it in the butt. Most schools, not all schools, but most schools are getting better at that. But I know there's dynamics where kids are kind of creating these little secret cliques of doing these things and thinking they don't want to tell the adults. They don't want to get the adults involved, but it is something adults need to help handle. They can't be their own counselors. They can't be their own. It's good to have peers that support you, love you, accept you. That's important. And so, but it's important to have that adult perspective. Their brains aren't fully developed yet. And when they get into these things, or they have this trauma, it interferes with that development even more. And so it's really important to have someone who's level-headed and has the perspective in there. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you can be that parent who's level-headed, great. But if you know something's come up for you when addressing these things for your child, that probably means you have some work to do too. And that could have been passed down to you from generational trauma as well. So I don't feel any shame or any guilt in that. Maybe you're the person who gets to break that. You're the person who gets to make a difference. We have to choose it and move forward with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all come to the parenting table with what we knew, with what we were raised with. And that's completely normal and natural, but there is nothing that will humble you like being a parent. Mm-hmm. And when you add a mental health issue to the mix, it's that much more difficult. Yeah. And I found, it's interesting. we talk, we do spend a lot of time telling ourselves, got to trust my gut. I got to trust my gut. And then when you used that example earlier, you were absolutely right in that situation. But there were a lot of times where I trusted my gut that it was wrong. It was wrong. The things that my niece needed were not the things that came naturally to me. The things that the types of support that she needed were not types of support I had experience providing. And I had to learn to get out of the way. I had to learn some entirely new approaches, some entirely new tools. And if you're not willing to look in the mirror and admit, I am lost, I am screwing this up, I don't know what I'm doing, you're not going to be open to learning the tools that you need to help your kids be resilient, to help your kids heal, to help them be the best that they can be. And it's not comfortable. It's not easy to admit, holy cow, I am completely unequipped for this journey. I have no idea how to do this. But once you've admitted that to yourself, you can reach out to the experts and get the help that you need and that your kids need.
Yeah, because you're willing to address what's here and what's right now. And we only have control of ourselves and this moment. That's all we have control of. And so whatever reaction we get from the kids, you could have two kids in the same situation and they take two different paths. They do have some agency. And I think the trick with mental illness and agency is they still want their agency honored, but you have to hold boundaries of safety with them in a different way. So you still have to allow them choice to decide what works for them, what they're going to explore. But there may be things that are not good for them that you need to keep them out of that environment or away from those peers or away from those stimuli because they have an addictive personality or because of whatever it was that they were exposed to. And again, that's the adult coming in versus the kid. They have to have the adult perspective with the fully developed brain to help them get to where they need to be. So something that not everyone's willing to completely dive into, but I think it's really important is suicide ideation. People hear that and they freak out. What is important to do if you have told your child is suicidal, you notice they're suicidal, or they tell you you're suicidal? What in your mind would be, and in your experience would be the things to start thinking about and do immediately?
So let me say this first. For most of us, that's exactly how it's going to happen. Somebody's going to share with us that maybe our child has told them, or our child is going to share with us that they're having these thoughts, and we're going to need to react from that moment forward. And I'll come back to that because it's super important. But if you have listeners who have younger kids, how amazing to start that conversation early. Start that conversation in elementary school, because you're right. Our kids have heard the word suicide. We would very much like to believe that they haven't and that they don't know what it means, but they do. And their friends are talking about it.
Yep.
So they need to hear it from us. And so I really, really think parents should be having those conversations in 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade. Hey, you know what? I just want you to know that sometimes people get so sad or so depressed or so frustrated with life, they don't know how to handle it. And so sometimes they think that they need to kill themselves, that that's the only way to feel better.
Yeah.
And I just want you to know, if you feel that way, it's totally normal. It's not uncommon. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. You're not bad if you have those thoughts. But if you have those thoughts, you need to tell somebody.
Yeah.
You need to tell me, because it means you need some extra help, and we can get you that help and you can feel better. But how amazing if we have those conversations with our kids when they're little, when it's not a big deal, when they're like, okay, Mom, what about Minecraft? Right? Like it just becomes, and it's not a one-time conversation. None of these with our kids are, right? You got to have it more than once. And so how amazing if we're having those conversations with them early so that it's in their mind. That's the thought Mom told me about. I'm okay, but Mom said I need to tell her, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's my ideal setup.
Oh, yeah. All the things we need to do much earlier than we think these days. So
right.
I totally agree.
But the fact is, most of us haven't. So what if you're there right now? Or what if next week you find yourself in that situation with a kid? The first thing you do is do not freak out.
Yeah.
You're going to want to freak out. You're going to want to freak out very badly. And you can freak out on the inside all you want. But take a big, deep breath and tell your kid, okay, I'm so glad you told me. I'm so sorry you're feeling that way. It sounds like we need to get you some help.
Yeah.
Tell me where you are. Have you thought about a specific way that you would kill yourself? How would you do it? When would you do it? What would you use? You are not going to put ideas in your child's head by asking those questions.
Yeah.
You will never make a person more suicidal by asking them if they thought about killing themselves.
You'll see how far they have thought about it, actually. And that's important.
And when you're asking those questions, when you're having that conversation with them and you're able to hold it together and be calm for them, it takes a tremendous amount of pressure off of them because they know it's okay to talk about it. They know that you're safe, that you're not mad at them. You're not going to yell at them. You're not going to freak out. And let's be honest, you probably might freak out a little.
Yep.
If you do freak out, you just apologize and you tell them that you're sorry and you do better next time.
Yep.
But once you've had that conversation with them, once you know what the level of emergency is, if you have any question that your child is in immediate danger, that they have a plan, they have a way of carrying it out, you need to probably take them to the emergency room.
Yeah.
It's not a great system that we have in this country, but the system generally is at that level. You need to take your kid to the emergency room where they will be evaluated by the professionals who will decide, you know what, actually, we think they're safe. We think they can go home. Here, we're going to put a safety plan in place. Or maybe not. Maybe they aren't safe right now and we need to keep them for a little while.
Especially when you're talking about things like hallucinations and things that are kind of beyond something you can do something about. I think that's where they can decide, not you. That's one of those important things. But there's going to be several factors in there that they're going to notice that you're just not going to know about, not being an expert.
Yeah, for sure. If your child's experiencing psychosis, which is a very scary word, but it just means they're seeing or hearing things that aren't there for us, that's definitely something that you need to consult with medical professionals about immediately.
Yep. And anything with self-harm too at any level, because it can be taken to the next level. That needs to be addressed right away as well. And so, yeah, these are big, scary things and you hope they go away. But any form of deep depression, any form of these things that we're talking about need to be addressed. You do need to go to the emergency room. And that might evoke things in you if you don't like hospitals, if you don't like doctors and different things, but you really need to leave that at the door. And you need to just be there for them because it's scary for them too. If they admitted that and that's where they go, they're also going to be experiencing some of that anxiety, especially if it's the first time or something like that. You're what's familiar. You're home for them. So even though maybe they may be pushing you away or it may not seem like you're their safe space, recognize that you are and be strong for them in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great advice.
And I love that you're sharing this because there's been mental health in my family, and I've shared this story once before, but my family knows that I've been through some things and I've come out the other side. And so sometimes they give me advice because we're finding trends in the family now. We're finding some patterns. We're finally willing to admit there's some things that people need to address and take care of with medication or different things. But I remember one time getting a call from a family member out of the blue, and they're like, they've got a gun to their head. What do I do? And I'm like, really? Why are you calling me? You got to call 911. This is beyond calling another family member. I don't understand why you're calling me. Call 911 right now. That's where it's gone too far. And there should have been signs of something leading up to that moment that probably didn't get addressed. Rarely does somebody you just find them like this. I mean, I'm sure it happens because we can hide these things. They're internal wars with ourselves. Suicidal is you against you in a lot of ways, or being in so much pain that you don't know what to do, or shock or trauma or different things, or a lot of isolation, which is a real problem today. People can feel really isolated if they're not someone to get out and to do things and different things. So this advice, I think, is so true to prevent something bigger from happening, waiting for it to get better. Address it, nip it in the butt right away. And sometimes that also gives a reality check for someone that may be kind of doing it for attention, because then they won't want that kind of attention from it unless they're,
and the good news is that if you're concerned that your child is just trying to get attention, you're still not wrong for going to get them help.
Right.
You're not wrong, because a child that would make a suicidal gesture or a suicidal comment that's more than just a passing comment that's a child that needs help. And it's not up to you to decide what it really means. That's not your job. Your
Yep.
job's hard enough. Leave it to the professionals to figure that out. You know, the
Yep.
other thing I really think parents should know about is 988, which is a relatively new number. It's similar to 911, right? It's just three numbers, but it's the National Suicide and Crisis Prevention Hotline. You can call it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and
Yep.
get help from trained experts who will lead you through what to do. So if you're in a situation that's short of immediate physical danger, but you're really like not sure what to do, call them and they'll help you make a plan. They'll help you kind of sort through what's happening and what the best next steps might be. And if you've got teens in the house, you should make sure that they know about that number, and also know that they can text as well at any time. They can
Nice.
text with somebody and get confidential help. Nobody's going to call mom and dad and tell on them. So that's another safety net to kind of throw out there and make sure that our kids know about.
I'm so glad that they've developed that, because that's going to help so many people to have something easy to remember instead of an 800 number this or an 800 number that. Sometimes you can get
Yep.
moved around
988.
to the wrong ones, and then you give, it's so brave for somebody to ask for help. It's so
It is.
brave for somebody to tell you. So I love that you started with thank you for telling me, because it takes so much for somebody to share with you what they're struggling with, because there is a lot of shame and there's a lot of guilt there. That's part of the isolation. That's part of just the psychosis of that. And so make sure to acknowledge that first. So I think we've hit like the most important thing to address, and the most like immediate sign of mental illness is suicidal ideation. We know what that is, but there are a lot of other spectrums of mental illness, from personality disorders to eating disorders to mood irregulation. There's all sorts of different versions of this. So I'm curious, with what you've experienced and what you've learned, maybe what some other tools or strategies can be for parents as they may be navigating, well, my child doesn't have a diagnosis yet, so how do I keep them safe until we do get the right tool set? Or what are some general ways to kind of address things and feel like they're doing their part as a parent?
I would say to keep the communication lines open with your kids. Start that early so that that's a comfortable situation for everybody involved. But just keep checking in with them. Are you going to annoy them? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But just checking in with them, like, how are you doing today? What's really going on? How are you really feeling? Doing that when you're in the car is helpful. Doing it when they're not, sitting across from you with a serious look on your face. That's not necessarily the most helpful way to approach it. But that's one thing that needs to happen. The other thing that needs to happen is to help your kid remember who they are. Yeah. As a parent, no one is ever going to love your kid like you do. And yes. Nobody's ever going to know your kid like you do. Mm-hmm. And so all the way through a mental health healing journey, a parent's most important job is to help a child remember who they are aside from their mental health struggles.
Yes.
You're not a person with depression. You are funny. You are good at science. You are terrible at cooking. You are the person who's always going to give a hug to that person that needs it. Like, whatever it is that makes your kid special, help them remember that, because that helps them hold on to their meaning and their purpose. And that's what we all need.
Oh, absolutely. One of the most important lessons I learned just in personal development was you are not your emotions. You can, just because I feel bad does not therefore mean I am bad. Just because you're feeling depressed does not mean you're a depressive person, or you're not a fun person, or you're not a talented person, or you're still you. And you can lose your identity in these things if it's not addressed correctly. So I'm glad that you said that. But the thing is there's a lot of meaning that we put on depression. There's a lot of meaning that we put on mental health. And we get to choose what emotions mean. So if we're able to feel an emotion and look at it more like, I feel that. Is that a natural biological reaction? Is that a normal biological reaction? Not a normal biological reaction? Is that from trauma? Is that from this, from that? But it's there for a purpose. We have our emotions for a purpose. What is the purpose? Does this purpose serve you? Does this purpose not serve you? And then you get to decide what it means, and you get to separate it from yourself and take control. I think that's so powerful. I think there's an exercise where you even like take the emotion, pretend it's a bubble, look at that bubble, evaluate it, ask your questions, and then either release it or take it in. Because sometimes we need to take those things in. It's a lesson that we need to learn, or we need to acknowledge, oh, that wasn't in alignment with me. This is, or, oh, I need to let that go. And that's another way to look at it, because we don't call people your broken bone. going back to our analogy. Oh, but
hello, fractured femur. Yes.
You're a fractured femur, but you're bipolar. You're this. I wish we didn't label it that way. It's not your. Maybe it's your broken bone. I mean, yeah, we do say
you
that.
are a person with a broken leg. You are a person who lives with bipolar disorder. You are not a bipolar. Yeah. That's not what I agree with you completely. And I talk about that when I speak to groups. Those words are not helpful. No. And they don't create an environment where people feel like they can be open about what they're experiencing. So it is super important.
Nor do they feel like they can overcome it, because if it becomes a part of your identity, how do you overcome it? How do you separate it from yourself? And we could definitely do more to address it that way. Because guess what? We all have struggles. Some are more extreme than others, but we all struggle. We all have obstacles and challenges to overcome. It's part of our human experience. And to act like they're not there, or to hide them, or to put shame around them, or different things, it doesn't serve us. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. That's how we get empathy. It gives us depth of character. And then it gives us the ability to help others, like you have. You've raised 4 kids, some with real challenges, but different kinds. And now you're serving other people by sharing that knowledge. Everything that comes our way is for a reason and for a purpose, and we get to decide what we make of it. So let's let the kids that are struggling know that they have that potential too. I love biographies. I love anything that shows what the human spirit is capable of. And so much of it is our internal world. And we're really fighting for that today. We have our own psychology being used against us in the worst ways, in this kind of consumer instant gratification, quick judgment. Do they like me? Not like me? Do I like it? Not like it? And we're not getting the depth to wire the brain the way that it should be properly. So not only are we dealing with the mental health crisis from maybe trauma or environments kids are growing up in with more broken homes more than ever, we got technology just amplifying it as well. And home can be a great tool, a beautiful home of love and care that you gave. Technology can be positive. It can be a positive thought for the day. It can be good music that's uplifting. But we have to learn how, for each individual, what works for them, what helps them snap out of it, what motivates them to try, what helps them to get where they're going to go. And I love that you shared too, it took years. The damage at a young age really does take years to heal. And the younger, probably I don't know, I guess it depends on the kid too. I'm not sure if younger is worse, but longer in the trauma, longer on the way out kind of thing.
Absolutely. I think younger is worse in a lot of ways. I think that what we are going to learn at the end of the day is that chronic trauma and chronic abuse particularly causes biological brain injury. It's in many ways very similar to brain injuries we incur in accidents and concussions, and right, like it changes your brain, and not in a good way. And so I think that's one reason that it's really important, if we're ever suspecting abuse in another family, in another situation, that we report it as soon as possible and try to get those kids out of that situation. But something I wanted to come back to, you were talking about earlier about the ability to process emotions and determine what purpose they serve, because they always serve a purpose. And I think one of the things we have to remember for our kids and for ourselves as well is that the tricky part of that is that sometimes mental health is about emotions and about working from within ourselves and figuring out how to handle them and what to do with them. Yeah. Sometimes mental health is a medical, biological problem. Yep. That needs medical treatment to fix. So there are certain mental health disorders, bipolar is a good example, or schizophrenia, that talk therapy is not the right treatment. Nope. Talk therapy and learning all of the beautiful strategies and approaches in the world, it's not going to fix. You need medication. Yep. And you're going to need lifestyle changes, and you're going to need to take care of yourself in very specific ways that affect that mental problem, which is a medical problem. And we need to start viewing mental health as a medical problem, a physical health problem, just like anything else. And so again, that's not our job to figure that out as parents. Our job is to get the kids in front of the right folks to help figure that out. And then maybe what they do need is talk therapy. Maybe they have just some lagging skills in terms of emotional resilience that will benefit from learning new coping skills. Fantastic.
And I wish so much. I lost my 20s to mental health because of the stigma. I tried out a couple medications. They didn't do what they thought they would do. They actually made things worse. But I was completely on my own in my 20s figuring this stuff out because nobody wanted to address it with me early in my life when signs first showed up. And there was just nobody there. And I couldn't afford the services on my own either. And so
Right.
I am lucky to even be here today, because technically I shouldn't have survived some of the things that happened because of lack of getting the right help or the wrong medication without support. And
Yep.
and now I've gotten to the point that I've learned the right coping skills, and I'm still like, they still don't quite have a diagnosis. I've gotten various diagnoses, but somehow I've learned to adapt and be resilient through it all. I've learned to choose positive coping skills. And for me personally, medication doesn't work. I'm too sensitive. But I have tried it because I realized I wanted to feel better and I needed to try to see if anything would help. But I knew I also had to be in an environment where I had support to do that in case it went the wrong way. You can't really do that on your own. And that's where it's really important to have a supportive community around a child or around a family member and not just leave them to themselves. That's a real problem with mental health issues, is if we push them aside, if we isolate them, if we leave them to figure it out themselves, they're not going to. And they're going to lose time of healing to get where they need to be in the meantime. Right. And the other part of that is, like, if you have family members, I now know there's family members with mental health issues. Like, I can talk about that now. And we can realize there's better ways to deal with this. And so in a way, we've been able to change the next generation and not put the shame and not put the isolation and don't talk about it. That's gone, so that it can be addressed. It can be nipped in the butt, and that right help can be put in place. But that's a choice you have.
And that's exactly how we would approach it if it was a physical health problem, right? If you have a daughter and there's a history of breast cancer in your family, you're going to tell her. You're going to say, guess what? This is what you need to check for. This is when you're going to need to start getting mammograms, maybe earlier than everybody else. This is what you'd be concerned about. If you feel a lump, here's who you go to. Here's what you do about it, right? So straightforward. This is our family history. That's exactly what we need to do with a mental health history of our family. You need to know there's a history of depression in the family. Here's what it might feel like for you. Here's what you're going to look out for. Here's when you'd want to tell me, or here's when you'd want to get help. We set our kids up for success that way because they know this is something to be looking for. And this is something that I am going to tell mom about. Because you're right. A lot of times kids don't talk about stuff. They either don't know they're supposed to talk about it. They don't know that their way they're feeling isn't normal, or they feel like maybe it's wrong or bad and they're going to get in trouble, or mom's going to freak out. And so having them set up ahead of time with the language, giving our kids the language to talk about mental health, makes it possible for them to be able to get the help they need.
And even our family history, if we can just be aware of patterns, and it may not be clearly mental health, but something that might turn them into mental health issues, like, for example, alcoholism in your family. Let them know, hey, this is in your blood. If you ever touch the stuff, you're probably going to get addicted. And therefore, also, if you do drugs, you're probably going to get addicted. If they know that, I hope they would be less likely to try it, because they would see a family member, or they would understand, oh, this isn't something I can just do once for fun, and there's not going to be consequences. If they have that family history and their genetics, it will affect them. But not only that, I really have a hard time with the phrase, oh, it's my body. Yes, it is. But whatever you do to your body will affect the next 3 generations. It's been scientifically proven. So if I choose to become an alcoholic, I'm passing that on. If I choose not to address my problems with mental health, I'm passing that on. If any habits that I have, good or bad, they're being passed on. And as a birth mom, I've even seen that in my daughter, who has not been raised with me. There's so much of the body language and the tendencies and the likes and the dislikes and the patterns and the struggles that are similar to mine, from the choices that I made or from the generations before. So what you're doing with this work now, the work that we're doing, this inner work that people are becoming more aware of, it's really important, not just for those that we love, but for the world to kind of level up and heal and get to a new level where we can address what's coming and what's ahead with technology and different things and more differences for the next generation. They need to be resilient. They need to know what their inner tools are and to be mentally strong for whatever's coming ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
Any last thoughts as we wrap up, or stories you'd like to share?
I just want people to be really, really solid on the fact that recovery is possible for mental health issues.
Absolutely.
It's not something we talk about very often, and it's 100% true.
Yeah.
Not every single time, not every single person, but most of the time, recovery is the expectation, whether it's anxiety or depression or other mental health issues. Even if you are going to live with an issue as a chronic condition your whole life, you can get better. You can feel better if you get the help that you need. And early intervention makes a difference. And that even goes for people who live with suicidal thinking. Most people who live with suicidal ideation, most people who make a suicide attempt will not die by suicide. But we've got to get our kids the help that they need. We've got to take our heads out of the sand, not hope it's a phase, not hope that it's going to pass. And we need to get equipped with the tools that we'll need as parents to be there for them. And then we need to take care of ourselves as parents as well, and practice good self-care so that we're healthy and we are the best that we can be.
Absolutely. Because then we teach them how to do that by our example as well when they get there. And then they know they can get there too. I resonate so much with what you said and what you've shared and your vulnerability with us today. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being a guest today and being willing to just be so open and go wherever the conversation went today. I'm sure there's someone out there that needs to hear this, especially a mom who's struggling, to know she's not alone and that you can get your kids through this and that you can make a difference. And even if it's not a kid, if it's someone and this resonated with you that no one person can make a huge difference for someone else. And
a huge difference. Yeah, especially for people living with mental health issues. If there's one person in their life that doesn't give up on them, that checks in with them and is constantly like, hey, I'm here. How you doing? You want to go for coffee? Want to go for a walk? Yeah, absolutely. Being that one person can be huge. And I want to let parents know that I do have a book available called What to Do Right Now If Your Child is Suicidal. It's for parents, it's for caregivers, teachers, counselors, and it's for anybody who might encounter a kid who's struggling with a mental health crisis. So please reach out for that and use that resource. Use NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. There's so many places to get help. You just need to reach out and get it.
Wonderful. If people want to work with you further and dive deeper into this and glean from your experience and the knowledge that you've gained, where can they find you?
They can find me on my website, tararolstad.com. And information on the book is there, information on the programs that I share with communities and corporations and associations. It's all there.
Wonderful. All right. Well, here's a resource for you. I hope this served today, or you share this with someone who might need it as well. We want to help with the pandemic, with mental health issues, with self-harm, with suicidal ideation. Let's end it. Let's do something about it. So let's get this conversation going with the right conversation that's helpful and that will serve. I believe in you, believe in yourself. God bless. And we'll see you next time on the Resilient Mother podcast. Thank you for joining us today. Please don't forget to subscribe so we can share this message. We are a worldwide podcast with guests all around the world, and we want to continue to grow this community. You can find us on socials. You could also be a guest. Look for that link below if you'd be interested in being a guest on the podcast. If you know a sponsor or would like to be a sponsor, please reach out to me or Catherine as well.
Sure. We want you all on this journey. We want to hear your stories. We want to share your stories. We want to gain strength from each other because together we're stronger. And to never forget the blessing of being a mother and what we're creating. We're creating the future every single day of our lives. So get on this train with us and let's do this thing, moms.
I believe in you, believe in yourself. God bless, and we'll see you around. Take care.